All right, boys, we ready for today's episode?
Oh, I am so excited.
I mean,
I have been itching to watch this.
It's I'm still waiting for the hooks, but I'm open.
The hooks aren't already in you, man? Come
No.
on.
No,
Well,
I'm
the
just
bear's
kind of
joining us.
blasé.
Blase. You're a blase.
Well, the
Yeah,
bear's
well,
going to
you're
join
a
us today.
blas B because I'm ahead of you in rank.
Damara, you ready for
Whatever.
today's episode?
Which episodes are we watching?
We're doing episodes 6 through 10.
There's a
Yes,
lady
I'm
on
so
deck.
excited.
I'm glad I took a shower.
Yes.
I'm glad you did too. I don't know how to say this easily for you gentlemen. We may have to have a conversation regarding coping skills for the next episodes which you are about to partake in.
Oh, so it's that awesome that our heads are going to explode, right?
Well, something's going to.
Something's, yeah.
It's okay. I already
Let's
take
just say-
antidepressants.
You know, if you need to cry, we understand.
I was born
okay.
without
It is okay.
lacrimal glands, so I'm incapable of crying.
Okay.
Oh, don't worry. We'll find
Poofy
other
has
things
actually
will
been
happen.
trained as an emotional support dog.
You're going
So-
to need him.
This is
Okay,
going to be interesting today.
good.
You might take a gas mask in there.
General Romeo coming in, begin transmission. Should you accept it now, here's your mission. Take your pilot seat and turn on your television. Logging into the Gundam Watch. What is a Gundam? We're gonna answer that question. From back in the classics to the newer expansion. Explore the lore with Dallas Moore and Branson. Welcome to the Gundam Watch. Moyagare, come and join the Gundam Watch. Machiagare, come and join the Gundam Watch. Yamigaeru, come and join the Gundam Watch. Tobeo, Gandamu, come and join the Gundam Watch. Brought to you by Geek Devotions comes another podcast to keep your feet in motion. Listening close and see what's all the commotion. Logging into the Gundam Watch. Dallas and Branson bringing their fandom to you with the passion of the veteran instructing the new. We're diving deep, but this ain't Bees, Views, and Reviews. Welcome to the Gundam Watch.
Hello, and welcome all Gundam fans and those who think they might be Gundam fans. Welcome to the Gundam Watch, a podcast brought to you by Geek Devotions, a show by devoted geeks devoted to letting you know that you are loved. That's right. If you don't listen past this moment, know this. God designed you. God has a purpose for your life. He loves you, and we love you. Joining me here at Shiur Base today is our Commander-in-Chief, our Master, our Captain, Mr. Dallas Mora.
I don't know about Master. That's a little over the top, B.
Like Master and Commander, like the...
Oh.
Never mind. I wasn't going there, man. Come on.
Who else is on board with us today?
All right. We've also got our resident Lovecraftian expert and all-around nice guy, Mr. John Haryu.
Bro, if you're not our master, who have I been making these animal sacrifices to?
I'm really scared now.
Boy. Poofy, go hide. Go hide, Poofy. And last but certainly not least, probably the only sane bunch in this whole group, our very special guest, Miss Damara Mora.
Hey, y'all.
That's my sister.
Yeah. I love the sane conversation. We'll see if that stays in place.
I only just now realized that your full name sounds like a move in Dragon Ball. I can do the Damara Mora wave.
My middle name ain't even in it, bud.
Damara Mora!
That's fair. That's fair.
Look, I have magical powers, okay? We're not supposed to be sharing that with anyone.
It's true. She does. All right. Well, I'm excited about this. I hope you guys have been excited about this, about the show, about watching Gundam. I know John has some apprehension last time. I want to say this real quick. This is special to me because we're going through Gundam Wing, and this is something that's very special for me because this is something that Damara and I watched together. This is something we shared, and then we're going to share with my friends. So I'm excited about today. Yeah, this is gonna be fun. Bring your tissues. I don't know, not tissues. You're just gonna have a lot to think about. It's not really a cry fest.
Is it
John?
as bad as Soldiers of Sorrow?
No, I don't think
Is it
so.
as bad as G Savior?
not that kind of bad.
You're going to have an emotional response. You just won't be in tears.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's all right. A little
That's
bit
fine,
of
Marissa.
emotion is healthy every once in a while.
And
Yeah,
we
we have
checked,
this
John, your
therapy.
insurance is going to cover this.
You know,
Yes, it
you
covers
say
EMDR. That's technically going to have to happen after this.
ASMR.
EMDR.
Oh, I was about to say I'm not sure I'm okay with any of you guys whispering in my ears for about a half hour. So
Well, ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, let's go to the pods right now.
Okay. Going to the pods.
All right. Let's get the coffee ready. Ooh, you know what? I think I'm feeling ramen today. Okay, so expectation. If I remember correctly, I need to prep. This could be kind of traumatic for the guys later if I remember these episodes correctly. Okay, pen, paper, notes, ready to go. Okay, we got this. No biggie.
All right. Time to watch episodes 6 through 10 of Gundam Wing. Let me get the quesadillas ordered. All right. What are my expectations? I expect there to be a lot of fallout from the revelation that Raylina is a peacecraft. I expect to learn more about what exactly a peacecraft is. I'm still confused about that. I expect there to be more interaction between the Gundam pilots. See them working together a little bit more. Especially now that Quattro and Troa are officially buddies and know each other. And then Hero and Duo kind of know each other. I expect there to be more fighting, obviously. I'm also very eager to see Tall Geese in action. I'm hoping that we actually get to see that Gundam suit cut loose a little. Yeah. So, enough talking. Let's just get into this.
all right, let's see here now. Oh, someone left a Tootsie Roll on my seat. Oh man, are you serious? Freaking dog. Ugh. All right, well, anyway, see here, expectations. I'd have to say at some point within these 5 episodes, I'm expecting to get hooked into the series finally. I don't know. I'm fairly ambivalent about it at the moment, so hopefully. But outside of that, I don't know. Politics and drama. It's the name of the game for this show.
All right. Let's see here. What do we want today? I'm feeling a little bit of some ramen and some tacos. And wait a minute. I wonder if I can make ramen taco seasoning. We'll see what happens here. All right. Expectations. What's happening here? Okay. All right. The story's about to progress. It's been a minute since I've seen this, but we left off the last episode and John was just not feeling it. Like he was okay with it. And my concern is that it's a lot of that comparison to which of course is his first Gundam series. So I'm just not sure how the next 5 episodes they pick up, if I remember correctly. So my expectations are some things come to a head from what I remember of the series as far as pushing the real conflict. The last 5 episodes were more world building. I feel like we're going to see the real conflict take place and a little bit more story building take place. So that's my expectations for today. And I expect to enjoy every moment of it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, 5 more episodes in the
Hold
can.
me, Poofy. Hold me.
Hey Branson, if I'm not mistaken, I think Poofy left a Tootsie Roll in my pod.
Oh, well, you like chocolate, right?
Yeah, you eat it.
Yeah.
At least it wasn't a Crunch Bar.
For an emotional support animal, kind of forgot they may have some trauma too. Oops. Doggy therapy may be needed.
Yeah. All right. So we just got out of the pods and we watched 5 episodes 6 through 10. and it was a run. It was a good run. I've enjoyed it so far. But we want to give you guys kind of a flyby. Just we're gonna walk through each episode one by one, kind of digest it. Branson's over here. Do you have hives, Branson? What's happening over here?
I just, you were right. It wasn't as bad as Soldiers of Sorrow, but well, we'll wait till we get to the episode and we can talk spoilers before I get into why I'm upset.
All right, well, let's jump into it. Episode 6. It was a great episode. Great night. It was a great time. Great party. Our great name. It was called Party Night. In episode 6, just kind of a quick brief description. In the wake of the assassination of Vice Minister Darlin, Relina is having to come to grips both with what's happened to what has happened and the newfound truth of her true identity as Relina Peacecraft. While coming to the grips with this, she confronts Hero, letting him know that she is on his side in this war against Oz. Oh, Oz, not being a group to leave loose ends, plans a surprise attack on Relina's school in order to assassinate her before she can reveal the truth about Lady Une. Hero, thinking that he's the target, jumps into 01 and to fight. Amid the fight, he finds himself drawn to protect Relina. The attack is called off, however, as a personal favor for Zex, suggesting he is a relative Relina of some sort. All right, guys. So, what did we think of Party Night?
I
Can
think
I make
that.
a comment?
Go ahead.
I'm going to go first today. Okay. For starters, on what universe does it make sense to attack a school? I mean, you got to be seriously messed up to send a bunch of giant robots to demolish a school. I mean, come on.
But I think that's what highlights the evilness and the deceptiveness of Trey's and Oz, because the whole plan was to frame it as a colony, a terrorist attack.
Well, and yeah, I know that. But I mean, the first thought watching that episode, in 2023, not in my teenage years, was I didn't think twice about the fact they were attacking a school. And this time I'm like, that's a school. Hello.
Yep. Branson, what were your thoughts on the episode, man?
I had a couple of questions. Relina, she's an interesting character.
She is.
But all of a sudden she's like tough. I mean, she was all boo-hoo, daddy doesn't have time for me. And then she was, I really like Hero and Hero doesn't like me back. I'm slightly obsessed with him. And now she's like, I'm the go-to person that tells everyone what to do when explosions are going off around me. It just seems like a little bit of a whiplash.
Well, yes. But at the same time, the story doesn't do a good job of keeping you up to date with time gaps. So the assumption is from the opening scene to this, it's been a couple of weeks for her to start, go through some counseling or something. I don't know. But finding that resolve of, these people came after my dad for a reason. I'm going to live up to what my adopted dad, had tried to instill in me, type of thing.
Yeah.
And that, again, that's part of that is legitimately a flaw in this series. If you do not pay attention to the announcer, you miss the fact that you're skipping weeks and months.
Oh, I see. And my second question about that scene specifically, Hero is leaving the school. He's getting ready to, pack up and ship out. He just happens to be, I think it was a dance that he was there. It was like, it's your last night here, just enjoy yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And then the mobile suits attack led by Lady Yun. And all of a sudden the Gundam shows up. And no one's like, Hero is here. The Gundam is here. I wonder who's piloting the Gundam. I mean, it's like the Christopher Reeve Superman where Lois is like, Superman's here and Clark isn't around as usual. I wonder why. Whatever. This is supposed to be some kind of super secret infiltrator guy. And it just, I don't know. It seems like 2 and 2 ought to be put together a little bit easier.
I'll give you
I
that.
sound like I didn't enjoy the episode. I did. Those are just
I'm waiting for the
It's
musical the musical remake of this episode when Raylena shows up and she's like, "I'm holding out for a hero." Jeez, Damara, you started laughing early into that bit.
I just saw where that was going.
I think
I
you
was
were
on that same line. I could hear the song in my head before you said it.
Right.
I think you're looking at my notes, you cheating cheaterton.
Well, you should have put it in Japanese on my screen. I'm just kidding. No, I do want to point out though, to kind of like a reminder about Relena is that we kind of step into a piece of her life when
Mhm.
she meets like the first guy that seems to turn her head.
Mm.
But she's also a leader in the school. She'd been a leader in the school before she comes back. So for everyone to look up to her, she's kind of stepping back into a role she's already been in for a long time.
Yeah.
So we
okay.
miss that character development from before the show starts. And we pick up when she decides to act like a girl.
Yeah.
Very extreme girly girl. Let me put that out there.
Yes.
Extremely
Yeah.
girly girl.
Yeah.
Not just mild,
Which-
but like
Which makes
ridiculous.
later events that we will discuss in future episodes really seem like it caught me off guard, but we can discuss that when we get to that episode.
Can I
Okay.
just say that it's a little bit disturbing that Raylena is the one guy that she's like, yes, I want this, is the guy that keeps pointing guns at her. I mean, what does that say about her as an individual? Like, I think she's broken. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, I mean, you may not be wrong about she's probably suffered quite a bit. Again, she just discovered that she's adopted, that her entire family was murdered, and she may have been really young when that happened, but I mean, that stuff leaves a scar even on small children. I mean, there's been studies about kids who have, and the American can confirm or deny this and correct this later, or right now even, but there have been studies about like babies who are suffering from like PTSD and other things from stuff that happened to them and when they were even younger.
so
And
what
they
you're
grow-
saying is having a gun pointed at her gives her a sense of home.
I mean, when your home's invaded, I guess. I don't know.
Everybody
parents
turns
were
and looks at
killed.
Damara for this. Like, can you enlighten us on the psychology of this?
Well, I mean, I want us to think about it this way. As you go your whole life where everything is pristine and perfect and constantly handed to you, you end up craving something that is adventurous. And in her very messed up brain, she's grown up in a household of complete pacifism. There are no guns, there are no nothing. So her version of rebelling is liking things that are more adventurous, that are farther out there. And he clearly had the passion to do this, even though she didn't comprehend it or understand it in the beginning. She's craving that adventure, something that's outside, because I don't think she fully comprehended the depth of what pacifism actually meant, like her parents were teaching. I think she was just taught, and she just assumed, okay, that's how everything's supposed to be. So I don't understand why everyone else is this way. So she wants to know that side. But unfortunately, she's a teenage girl. And I'm sure, because when I was growing up, the whole bad boy image was supposed to be the greatest thing in the world, and everyone wants to tame the bad boy. And I am more than sure that's where her brain is at in this show.
I don't know. All I know is that I just wish Hero would shoot her and get it over with.
Wow.
Dang.
Wow. Okay.
Tell us what you really think, John.
I just did. I am so sick of hearing her and being like, Hero! And I'm like, he's not that into you.
Until he like uncontrollably tries to save her.
Yeah. That felt
I love their
ham-fisted.
response to that. Simultaneous
just-
response of, ugh.
At that point, I think I just stopped trying to make sense of the show and was like, let me just enjoy the fact that the Gundam's fighting mobile suits. Let's just forget about why. Let's just enjoy it.
I think part of it, though, is that this was the episode where I was able to determine I just don't like Hero as a character.
That's fair.
I don't
Yeah.
like him as a character, and I'm sorry, Dallas, this is going to hurt your feelings a little bit. I do not like his Transformer Gundam. I do not like his Gundam.
Transformer Gundam.
Why does that hurt my feelings?
Because that's you said that was like your favorite Gundam in this show.
That was my favorite job.
Look, I'm just saying, I think the only thing that hurt him was when you said Transformer Gundam and he thought Transformers. And I think that's the only part of that whole sentence that he was hurt by.
So John, I know that Branson and I look similar, and people have accused us of being brothers, but I'm not. That was Branson's pick, not mine.
Oh, really? I thought you
Yes.
said. I thought you said you liked 01.
His favorite was Tall Geese.
Oh, gross. Never mind.
Yes. Although, well, once again, we'll have to get to later episodes. I did change my mind, but we'll get to that in another episode. But,
Well, speaking of the
fond
pilots,
enough of it. Yeah.
yeah. Speaking of the pilots, we also had this little side story of Troa joining up with the circus, and we see this whole little thing where he's basically the pincushion for the knife thrower, and she's like, "This dude just wants to die. Like, he just doesn't care." And I appreciate that scene because I really did like you get more of a feel of the mindset of this dude. Like, he's just cold. He's just like,
Yeah. And I actually like how it threw off what's her name? Catherine, the knife thrower. Like, his stoicism actually threw her off and made her miss and cut him.
mm-hmm.
Like, she's so used to compensating for people who want to live that the fact that he doesn't at all actually puts him in more danger.
Sir, with
Which
the
I thought
edge
was a neat
lordiness
thing.
with the edge lordiness that he was exuding through that episode, I'm not convinced that he doesn't already cut himself. So he wouldn't be bothered by that at all.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think we got into this because in the last episode, I can't remember now. It's been a minute since we talked, but his backstory, he has known nothing but war and death literally since he was a child. His family was murdered, and he was basically taken in by mercenaries, and he was a merc starting from the age 5. And so this is all he knows is death.
I mean, I don't like his character either. I'm just saying, like, and it's unfair of me to say that but it's like the dungeon master in me coming out, because it's just like there's people who play characters like this that we refer to in the gaming industry as edgelords, where it's just like, I am incapable of feeling because my family was murdered by a band of orcs, and I have to cut myself to make sure I can feel anything at all. I do not fear death, and I am only looking for my next release when I can watch the life flow from the eyes of another dying victim.
I mean, I'm bored of the speech you're giving me right now.
What?
Okay.
I'm bored of the speech you're giving right now.
Well, and it's just like that to me. It's just like, oh, this is so cliche. And it's just like, I know that the writing in these shows are supposed to be get a little bit deep. And I'm just waiting for this character to bloom a little bit, because it's just like, right now, I don't care about him. It's just like, that character can die, and I don't think the show would be missing anything.
Well, what is something about this episode you have liked?
Except for Quatra, who
Catra.
whatever.
Catra.
I read it on my screen, and it's spelled Quatre.
It was
Pronounced
Catra.
Catra.
Whatever. Quattro. I'll call him that.
That's from Gundam Zeta.
If it makes you feel better, John, I write the QU in my notes too. So
That's how it's spelled in the
Yeah.
I feel completely inadequate right now because I have 0 notes on any of these episodes, and I'm sitting here trying to bite my tongue not to reference a later episode.
You're more familiar with the material. You don't need notes. John and I, this is our first time seeing it, so don't feel bad.
So tell me something you did like, John.
I mean, I'm always down for duo, you know.
Yeah.
DFD, man. That's me all the way, down for duo.
So what about duo in this episode struck you?
I don't know. I didn't write any notes down for him.
Because it's duo. This is his favorite. That's why. He's a comic relief, but also the realism person in the episodes.
I don't remember him in this episode.
I don't remember him in this episode either, to be perfectly blunt. But
I think he was the one that tried to convince Hiro to actually, like, you know, enjoy the dance and go to the dance for a little bit.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually act like a teenager.
Yeah,
That was
and
that
Mine's
wasn't
on
until
did
like episode like 9.
Are you sure?
That's in my notes.
Oh no, you're right, because that was when they were in the. That's when he went to the other school.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Crap.
But
Okay.
I mean, as far as what's in this one, I enjoyed the action.
Yeah.
Yes.
I enjoyed seeing the double cross and watching the Oz people be like, wait, there's 2 Gundams. And for as much as I've kind of crapped on this episode a bit, or at least Hero, because he's a terrible character, and so is and so is what's his face, Mr. Mopey. This was the episode that got its hooks in me. I don't know why. Like, this is where the series finally was like, okay, this is interesting all of a sudden.
I'm legitimately curious as to what about it grabbed you though.
I don't know.
Because
Maybe it was seeing Hero point a gun at Raylena for like the 5th or 6th time.
We're gonna test
we're
your
gonna
mental
get
health
phone
later,
calls about
sir.
this episode.
They're
Is that
coming.
John guy okay, Dallas?
No,
He
his
and his
homicidal
son is
thoughts.
already
We've
listening to
admitted
this
him to the hospital.
conversation.
Maybe it's
His
the
insurance is working with him.
maybe it's the inexplicable use of Victorian era dress, despite the fact that this is supposed to be a futuristic show. I don't know. It's just, for some reason on this episode, something clicked, and I was just like, okay, I'm interested now to see what happens.
Right.
I think it might have been just the setup for the bigger plot that happens in later episodes, where I wanted to see what was going to happen. Because I can promise you, it wasn't out of any amount of concern for Troa or Hero.
Right.
Because I am done with those characters.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
So I gotta be honest. I think that this episode, I think what actually got you is because there's a lot of foreshadowing of what could happen. It begins to open doors that could expand the storyline, like identifying Raylena's actual bloodline a little bit more and the connection to someone that is definitely far opposite of what she is.
I don't think that happened in this episode.
Didn't it?
Mm-mm.
At the end?
I have written
where
in
she
my,
gets stopped.
Nope, because I have notes when that pulls out. That happens in episode 8.
It's
but
foreshadowed though that
in this episode, Lady Yen's attack is called off, and we found out it was called off by Zex.
But they don't say why.
Right after though, Trace goes, so it's true. He may actually have a living relative after all.
Oh,
Yeah, Trace.
I didn't catch that.
It's like a one-off comment at the very end of the episode.
That's the thing about this show that I've enjoyed, that I enjoy and get frustrated. You have to pay attention to everything people say because it moves so fast. You miss stuff. Like, this is one of the things I appreciate about, because I can't remember if I said this on air or not. I'm reading through Endless Waltz, A Glory of Losers, which is a complete retelling of this entire series, which includes all the side material included into it. And it fills in these weird gaps and time jumps where you're like, things just make sense all of a sudden. With this series, though, you really do have to zone in on what people say because it's so quick. These offhand comments that they change the narrative so much.
and they aren't even offhanded. It's, you can tell they took time and effort into every word that they used.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be completely locked in to catch every detail. But there's a lot of foreshadowing in this. Even with Troa, she compares him to the eyes of the lion.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a caged lion we're looking at. So it's a foreshadowing of, you have no idea what's coming back behind Troa. There's a reason he acts this way.
Yeah.
I'm so sad and everybody is just out to get me and oh my
But I don't
God.
think he's sad. That's the thing.
Life has no meaning and I'm just ready to die and your knives don't scare me at all and you can murder me in front of everybody and it's okay.
Well, we've heard enough complaining today. Damara, why don't you read the synopsis for the episode 7, Scenario for Bloodshed.
Okay. So Trace sets up a trap of sorts for the Gundam pilots. He leaks fake information about meeting with all Oz officials taking place at an airbase. The Gundam pilots recognize this as their opportunity to take out Oz and all take the bait and attack. However, this was not an Oz meeting, but rather an Earth Alliance meeting. An Earth Alliance meeting that was meant to call for the disarmament of all troops and a call for peace. When the Gundams attack, Treize offers special transport for the leaders of the Alliance to get them to safety. At the same time, Oz troops work to overthrow Alliance leadership on every major base across the globe, effectively becoming a world power in hours. Amid the battle, Hero sees the Oz transport and destroys it, not realizing it is full of Alliance leaders. Shortly afterwards, Wu Fei shows up to reveal that reveals to the pilots that they've been tricked. He plays the live feed. I think that's supposed to say live feed.
Yeah,
to the final remaining Alliance officers who escaped with Treize. To summarize his message, the colonies attacked a peaceful Alliance meeting with their terroristic Gundams. Now there would be no peace, only war.
So in the musical episode of this one, this is where the 5 Gundam pilots get together to form a rap crew called the Wu Fang Clan.
Oh my gosh. I'm gonna work on merch for that later. Oh my gosh.
To echo off of what John said about the last episode, this is the episode that got its hooks in me.
Really?
Because Oz taking over reminded me very much of the 4D chess that is played in the Xeon family from the Mobile Suit Gundam movies.
Mm-hmm.
It very much harkened back to that. Not to mention also Zex exacting his he exacted his revenge. Was it this episode or the last? It was this episode where he shoots the guy, right?
Well, I don't know, because I'm in my notes. I think it's the next episode where he shoots the guy.
Okay. Well, anyhow, just the whole concept of them taking over was very, very reminiscent of Mobile Suit Gundam. That 4D chess of we've got people in place and we've been setting this up this whole time, and that was cool. It was cool to see all 5 Gundams together for the first time. I actually saw a smart villain. Like, the stereotypical, I am going to leave you in this unnecessarily slow death trap and then walk away and give you plenty of opportunity to escape, convinced that you will actually die. Well, Lady Yun, when she, uses that general for whatever she needs to get the Alliance to do what it needs to do, she kicks him out of the plane. On his way down, shoots him in the head. And like she even says, I can't leave any chance that you'll survive this. Dude's fallen from a plane. There's no chance he's going to survive that fall. But just to be sure, she shoots him in the head.
Right.
One, deadly aim to be in a moving plane, shooting a guy in the head while he's falling.
True.
But just that attitude of, not only am I going to do this, but I'm going to make sure that there is absolutely, I do not expect to see that guy again, ever.
Right.
I think he is truly, truly dead.
Yeah.
And normally in cartoons and comics, you have this trope of, even when you have smart villains, there's this fatal flaw. This one time their hubris makes them make a mistake. And while I think Lady Yun may actually do that later, in this instance, she was cold. She was calculated. She was like, we're not leaving this to chance at all.
Right.
So a lot about this. Up until this point, I enjoyed the show just because of how it looked. I love the animation. I love the fight scenes. I love the variations on the Gundams. Because in a Mobile Suit Gundam, the movies, we only had the one Gundam. Now we've got 5. Well, 6 if you include Tallgeese. And so I love the look, but it was the animation and the action that was attracting me. This was the first episode where the plot hooked me in.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I want to actually understand what's going on now.
I'm going to echo that. This is the intelligence of setting everything up, setting the pilots up, the Gundam pilots, to kill the Alliance leaders. The fact that at the exact same times Oz is systematically taking over the entirety of the world And the fact that because when they do it, there's a voiceover explaining that for years they've been planning this moment, infiltrating the ranks for the moment, and then making it happen. Let me ask you this, John, because you, like Branson, are a fantastic storyteller. Do you appreciate the way these villains are written, at least the way they're being drafted out here, or do you feel like they're still kind of flat?
Oh no, I dig them, and the reason why I dig them is because there was something in the storyline that completely stoked the narcissist side of me.
What was that?
The convincing hero to kill the people that were on his side.
Mm-hmm.
Now I want to point out that this is my first time seeing this episode.
Mm-hmm.
And I used the exact same plot hook in the season finale of Playing Games with Strangers when I made Pooh kill Callum.
Right.
And
I remember that.
And so
Branson's still scarred from it. For those of you who don't know, Branson right now looks like Beaker from the Muppets. Hey, tone it down. We don't use that language here, Branson.
Sorry.
But that wasn't him meeping. That was the censorship button getting pressed as he was talking. No, but so, I mean, I'm just watching this. I'm like, wow. I thought of doing something like this completely absent from this. And this has me so hooked right now. It only confirms the fact that I made a solid plot choice, because this was a solid plot choice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Suddenly this is where the five of them get together and they're a big family now. And then this happens and they're going into the wrong man scenario. And it's a bit paint by numbers, but the way it was executed, really, I'm here for it. I'm like, okay.
Are they really like a big family now? Because they were fighting on the battlefield amongst each other.
Yeah, but I mean,
that was the whole thing why Wu Fei had to make them stop fighting each other.
Yeah, but still, I mean, it's just like sometimes, like, say for instance, I'm trying not to name names, but there's people in your life that you're family with that you're gonna fight with them. They're gonna make you mad.
I gave you that.
Being family isn't lovey-dovey all the time. You're united behind the same banner to a certain degree, and whether or not you like that they're united with you is irrelevant.
Yeah.
And so it's just like,
Branson,
Branson,
when you look at who they kind of all all five of them were there, and then when you look at how they split up, Duo and Hero had already spent some time together, so they were kind of familiar with her. Katra, how do you say his name?
Katra.
Katra kind of fell in with Duo and Hero, which Katra's like the ultimate encourager. He's the bubbly personality. It doesn't take much for people to be like, oh, okay, he's not a serious threat. And then Wu Fei and Troa kind of went buddy-buddy there and chased after Trace together. But that's also not that surprising because, as you pointed out, Troa is kind of the whatever, I am death. And Wu Fei, up until the next episode, which I am eager to talk about, hasn't had that much character development like at all. So, him saying, no, I will not let Trace leave was like the most emotion we saw him emote ever. So when you look at kind of how they fell in line, it also, you see a family dynamic. It's like, okay, we're the side of the family that kind of gets each other.
They're the Planeteers.
Yes. That is a great way of putting it. Yes.
They're the Planeteers on My Chemical Romance. That's what that is. Damara, what are your thoughts been on this episode?
So this is one of those episodes that I honestly, when I remembered reviewing it, I was like, oh, this is the episode that's going to hook, line, and sinker them. Like, I really thought both of them, this was going to be the episode, because it's really, you do, like we said, Trace, you see his brain like in full force. Mm-hmm. He had to take a lot of time to plan that out to absolute perfection. And you start seeing that underhanded view of what's happening is going on. I'm starting to bite my tongue again because I'm afraid I'm going to let something out that I can't let out because it's really far out there. So I'm going to behave.
Sorry, we had tacos.
You need to talk about what you put in your tacos, sir. Some of it may not be classified as healthy. Okay. No, this was the episode that I really thought was going to get everyone's attention. If you weren't attached yet to the series, this is the one where you find out, okay, this really is something that you can be any age and get hooked on this show. And it really is any age at this point for this.
I really think that you were probably right when we were talking about episode 6. It was the foreshadowing for 7 that was happening in 6 that is what got its hooks into me.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I'm kind of ready for y'all to see the extra character development that happens with people like Troa.
I want it because I am so sick of the edgelordiness that he's exuding at the moment.
So what I would caution is keep in mind that every character in Japan, they have the storyline in their head before they start really putting stuff together. So there's a lot of behavioral responses that in real life, that is how someone would respond if you went through some of the things they went through. And so if you keep that in mind every time you watch them, especially people like Troa and Wu Fei, there's a reason they are built that way. You see a lot of cultural influences on why they respond a certain way. So I think as you go along and you get a chance to see that, you'll kind of crack through and you'll kind of see, okay, there's a lot more to this.
Definitely. All right. This was such it's funny because I feel like there's not a lot for us to say because it was so insulated into that one aspect of it with this episode. Does anybody have any last thoughts on this episode before we go on to the next one?
Let's go to the next one. I want to talk about Wu Fei.
All right, John, can you read us the description on episode 8, The Trey's Assassination?
Hero's traumatized by this event. He has failed his mission and was the cause of a greater catastrophe. At the same time, Oz has activated nuclear armament on the base that would destroy the Gundams and the surrounding area. Major Sally reaches out to Hero to give him a new purpose, to save as many as he could. While he sought to deactivate the bombs, Duo and Quattro secure transport, Wu Fei and Troa go off to attack Trees and his seabound troops. During the battle, Wu Fei has one duel with Trees, Trays. But in his defeat, I'm sorry, I'm reading the vowels like it's in German, and in German that would be trees.
Save the trees.
But in his defeat, loads back into his Gundam and sinks to the bottom of sea in despair. During the same time frame, we see an interesting conversation with Zex as he looks to take over a singular base. He kills an Alliance leader, but not before letting him know that this was personal to him. This Alliance member was personally responsible for the murder of the entire Peacecraft family. In a meeting with Trays, we learn that Zex is in fact the long-lost son of the Peacecraft family, Millardo. Zex, however, will continue to hide his face and name out of shame for abandoning his family's ideals. All this and more on the next episode of Gundam Wing.
All right. So, nobody really important to talk about in this one. So let's go ahead and go to the next episode.
Hush. Let me now give you my 24-page dissertation on why Wu Fei is now my favorite character.
Okay.
And I will tell you, and I will rebut that by telling you why he is the biggest idiot.
And Branson, when you're done, I'm going to give you some backstory on him when you're done.
Okay. So Wu Fei's doing his thing, right? He and Troa are attacking the fleet. They're going after Trace like they said they would. All right. And then we have a situation where Wu Fei in Nutaku, is that his Gundam's name?
His Gundam's name is Shinlong.
Shinlong. Why does he keep calling him Nutaku?
I'll explain that here in a little bit.
Oh, okay.
He calls him Kotaku?
Nataku.
Kotaku.
Nitaku. All right, so in Shenlong, he attacks the boat, and he's standing there, and Trace pulls out a sword, And I'm sitting here thinking, oh, I know what's about to happen. And sure enough, Wu Fei's like, very well, I accept. And he pulls out a sword, opens up Shenlong, and goes and fights him face to face. This is a duel of honor. Wu Fei, it's not enough for Wu Fei to win. He has to win the right way. It's not about, I'm here to kill Trace, let me just blow up his boat. No, he has challenged me to a duel, and because of my honor, I can't just blow him up with a WMD or whatever. I have to fight him face to face, man to man. And while I get that's not the most efficient way to achieve a mission, I love that about his character, is that he is so honor bound that he will deliberately take the hard way around because he is faithful to his ideals. He's faithful to his rules. He's a lawful good. And the great thing about lawful goods isn't that they're lawful good. It's that you constantly put them in situations where their rules are challenged.
You know what he's
Case
not
in
faithful
point.
to?
What?
His cause.
But see, that's the thing. His honor is greater than his cause.
Then he's a poor soldier.
Poor soldier, but honorable man. This is
I feel
about,
like the duel's about to break out right now. And I have to cover. I'm going to call for the
Hey,
medic.
John, just a heads up. Branson's not above stabbing somebody in the neck.
that
He may
was
have
an
practice.
accident.
He may have had practice. Believes he knows what to do with the bell guard as well.
so that's what I love about it is that he is honor. And I think that's actually why in later episodes why he's not there, because he wrestles with, I followed the rules, I didn't get the outcome I wanted, because he loses this fight. He doesn't win. And he has to wrestle with that. He has to come to terms with that. And that's why I like those kinds of characters, not because they're the light, bright, shiny thing, but because you can put them in situations where their black and white view of the world is challenged. And you see how they wrestle with it. And then they have to decide, do I follow the rules because they're my rules, or do I follow the rules because that's what culture has taught me? And Wu Fei is going on that journey now. And that's what makes him my favorite character. I think I still like Wing better than Shenlong as far as the type of Gundam. But as far as pilots, I was having fun with Duo. Duo was cool, but Wu Fei is now my favorite pilot.
Branson,
Hands down. Yes, sir.
if I remember right, you're a bit of a student of American history, right?
A little bit, yeah.
Do you remember what the American rebel response was when the British Army was complaining about the guerrilla warfare tactics that they used during the Revolutionary War?
No.
All's fair in love and war.
Okay.
I don't want to
Okay.
hear about rules of engagement. The fact of the matter is he had this series could have ended right here and there. If they really wanted to put an end to the tyranny that was about to happen, he would have seen him draw the sword and be like, cool. And then he would have fed him to the dragon arm on his
See, now
Gundam.
Wu Fei has to wrestle with that fact. He has to wrestle with, if I'd have just kicked my rules to the curb, I could have ended this, but I didn't. I followed my rules and I didn't win. See, that's the thing. Wu Fei is very much the kind of guy, he thinks if I follow the rules, I should always get the outcome that I desire, and I didn't. So now he is wrestling with, I am unworthy. I'm not worthy to pilot this Gundam. It creates such a beautiful story arc.
Idealism has no place on a battlefield. I mean, it
And
really.
Wu Fei is learning that lesson now. That's
He
what's
should-
so amazing about it.
He should have learned it before he got stuck in a Gundam, is what I'm saying. Because the fact of this is, should we have called Osama bin Laden out to duel with swords?
I'd do it, but that's just me.
Should we have should we have had a Wild West showdown in the middle of the street with Adolf Hitler? No.
Once again, I'd do it, but that's just me.
No, you go in there, you take care of the problem. personal issues do not trump combat objectives on the battlefield. That's just basic. And
Okay.
you have to think of it like this: for every person who is victimized by trees going forward, part of their blood, whatever. blame my German friend that is helping me out with youth group. Trays, whatever. Every person who is victimized by trays going forward, their blood is partly on Wu Fei's hands now, because he had the opportunity to stop it at the root rather than what he ended up doing.
I'm not saying you're wrong. What I'm saying is what you're discussing is exactly what Wu Fei is thinking right now. He's wrestling with that.
He should have thought about it.
His story arc.
He should have thought about it before he tried to.
Let's have some context of Wu Fei. Wu Fei is a
Wait, I got to understand why we just killed Damara.
Because I'm putting a stop to a fight, because I don't want to spend another hour podcast with you guys yelling about Wu Fei and whether or not he's a wuss or not. So
I'm not saying he's a wuss. I'm saying he is a bad soldier.
So here's the deal. Here's some Wu Fei stuff. Remember this: we're dealing with cultures, and they wrote some culture stuff into this. Wu Fei is part of a group of colonists who were banished from Earth. They, at one point, him and the clan that he was part of were one of the ruling parties in China.
Was it the Wu Fang clan?
Alliance, when the Alliance kicked in and started doing their stuff, they banished them to this colony. It's a ran down colony. It was the lowest of low. So all they had to hold on to was their personal honor. Wu Fei was very strong, very tough, but very intellectual, and he didn't care to fight. Now, he was engaged to the daughter who was in charge of the entirety of it. She was basically going to be like if they married, he would have been basically emperor of this family, of this community. And she called him out for being wuss, for not fighting and not fighting for justice and for honor. And she believed in fighting in a respectful manner. And he kind of had this mindset of like, this is stupid. I don't want to fight at all. And in a fight, there was a battle on the colony. They were actually going to gas the colony. The entire colony was going to be gassed and killed at one time under orders of the Alliance. And so she fought to save it. He jumps into Shenlong to save her because she can't handle a prototype mobile suit that was an experimental Leo called the Tall Geese. And she is not handling well. And she ends up dying in the process of everything. Her warrior name is Notaku. So he flies this machine. Now the machine's called Shenlong. Master O, who was the guy who built it, who allowed him to pilot it, he goes, well, look, you're not really built to handle Shenlong. He's like, no, its name is Notaku. Her spirit will live in this machine. I will fight her way. I will fight the justice that she seeks out, that she sought out, and I will work every day to be worthy of piloting Notaku. So when he's sinking down the bottom and he's talking about I'm not worthy, he is feeling that he has failed his fiancée because he was unable to kill Trace fighting. You got me saying the wrong way. Trace, not Trace. He was unable to kill Trace fighting honorably. And so that's the deal.
You just made me love him all the more.
That's the internal conflict that he's dealing with.
I'm just going to point out that I still have the eye roll from one screen, and I have the grin of I have been proven right on the other screen.
Oh my gosh! So before we go on to the next episode, I want to talk about I want to give Damara. Actually, Damara, what were your thoughts? Because you haven't had a chance to talk on this episode. Because there was a lot that happened.
I mean, there is a lot, and it's one of the first times you really get a full view of Wu Fei at a stronger level. It's not so much, oh, here's your cameo, and that's the end of it. It kind of makes you want to think more about who is this person, it's more kind of a better introduction. I think there's other episodes to come that kind of explain him a little bit.
Mhm.
He is not my favorite character. He's one that I wanted to punch in the face.
Yeah,
Thank
me too.
you.
Because he does not for the same reason you do. Okay.
Hey, you know what? We don't have to believe the same things for the same reasons. I think Church has taught us that.
That is true. He is one that I'm not his biggest fan. Me and Wu Fei would not get along very well. He's got a big ego sometimes, and sometimes his ego gets in his own way. But at the same time, I think there's something that was always underneath that ego, and I don't think we get a chance to really see the two sides meld together until in much later episodes. But I do think this is a great episode to introduce him as a character and to really see his Gundam more than just, one move. He does a lot more than one move, I'm just saying.
He's like the Apostle Paul when he was
come
still
on
Saul
now.
on the
He's
Damascus
selling
Road.
it. He
has
it.
zeal for his way of life and has not yet met the Christ yet. Losing to Trace is the equivalent of the Damascus Road experience. He is
Are you
blind.
comparing
He is
Trace
humble. He's
Kushinada
trying to
Jesus?
understand what's
Is that
going
what I just
on.
heard?
No,
you're
I'm
done
not saying
talking.
that Trace is Jesus.
Turn
I'm saying
his
it's
mic
the
off.
same
Turn
experience.
his mic off. He's done.
That's not what I said.
All right, so for me, just some conversation about the episode. There was a whole nother thing going on where Hero was trying to stop a nuclear bomb from going off.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
that-
can I
that-
just say how interesting is it that of all the things we've talked about, the nuclear disarmament was the least interesting part of the episode?
That's horrible.
Because it's the truth. It's like, oh, okay, Hero is going to stop a nuclear bomb from going off. Given that there's an entire series left to go, I'm pretty sure he's successful. Take me
Right.
back to Wu Fei and this honor-bound duel.
All
Well,
right.
what's
Sorry to cut
interesting
you
about
off, Dallas. Go ahead.
What's interesting about the bomb is not that he disarmed it, but the other aspects of it. The fact that we have an Alliance soldier who was in charge of interrogating him, now giving him new purpose in helping him. She believes in him. And so we start to see this faction of Alliance and Oz taking place. And the fact that at the end of that episode, Lady Un is like, she feels bad because she didn't accomplish the mission. And Trace is like, no, we should be thankful for the Gundams. Because of them, the planet was saved. We need to respect our planet more. This gives us a little bit more of an interesting look at Trace and his ideals. And not that he's a good guy, but he really has a very different way. He's a different written, like, psychomaniac, if you will, throughout this entirety of this thing. And in fact, he keeps challenging, like, she has the mindset of what we look at as a typical villain. Oh, kill them all, no matter what. And he keeps saying to her and other people going, you don't get it. You don't understand what we're all about yet. And so, again, it was cool. It was action, seeing him do what he needs to do, overcome. And I appreciate him kind of finding new purpose and waking up and like, oh, I've screwed up, but it's time to move forward. But I think it's interesting because I feel like it gave the villains more depth, at least the organization of Oz and who Trace is.
I'm going to have to refrain from commenting on Lady Un because there's a huge bit coming that I have to keep my mouth
I have a
shut on.
comment for her in episode 10. Trust me.
Well, let's jump into episode 9. Mr.
Real quick.
Yes. I'm sorry.
I just want to say that the big reveal, because the only talking I did was refuting.
You are so right, John. I apologize, man. That's my fault.
Refuting Branson's
Like,
That
I
was
think
just a
that took
poor
15
conversation. I
poor
minutes.
thought you were part of
judgment
that.
of character here.
Okay, moving on. Before the war and battle start again. Still clean
No,
blood off my computer.
No, I will say that there is one other thing we only just briefly touched on, that finding the confirmation that Zex is a peacecraft that happens in this episode is some super tasty drama that I am 100% here for.
I'm actually excited to hear that because I felt that you were kind of meh about the whole peacecraft stuff and the Relina and
No,
and
Relina
all
as a peacecraft, I didn't care.
right,
But Zex as a as a piece craft. That was that was tasty. Watching him shoot that guy in the head, I'm like, yes, more of that, please. And then
There's only one guy.
you know what I mean, dude. Come on. And the thing about it was, yes to all of that. And was this the episode where he took his mask off briefly to talk to the picture? I'm pretty sure
It's the next episode, I believe.
Okay.
Oh no, you're right. No, it's the next episode. I'm double checking.
All right. Well, I'm just saying, Homeboy's got some fabulous hair.
He does.
He does.
May or may not be one of the many reasons I grew out my hair when I was in high school.
And I will say that it was this episode that made me realize who my favorite character was in this whole entire show.
Who is?
Zex.
Wu Fei.
My man. Welcome to the club, sir.
Zex, I don't know what it says about me, but I relate to him.
Says the same thing about me.
I relate to him more than I do than anybody else in this series. Don't get me wrong. Like I've got a raging bromance for Duo.
Mm-hmm.
But Zex is the guy that's just like, if I was to assert myself into anybody in this show, if I was just to be like, if I was in this show, that would be me, it'd be Zex all day, every day.
Nice. Very nice. Well, with that, Branson, will you please introduce episode 9 to us, Portrait of a Ruined Country?
All right. In the wake of John being wrong about Wu Fei. Oh, wait. Sorry. Let me try this again. That was practice.
I will fight you.
Well, according to Damara, that's already happened. That ship has sailed. All right, here we go. In the wake of the overnight revolt, small battles between Oz and the Alliance continue. Lieutenant Otto personally delivers the Tallgeese to Zex, explaining that this machine is far too powerful for anyone to pilot. Zex takes the Tallgeese and looks to overthrow the Alliance leadership in the Sank Kingdom, the kingdom he once called home. However, while attempting to pilot the Tallgeese, Zex, for the first time in years, feels true fear. The power of the Tallgeese is far too much for him and pulls out of the battle for a time. Later we learn that the immense power of the Tallgeese actually gives Zex a heart attack. However, out of a sense of duty and honor to Zex, Lieutenant Otto takes the Tallgeese on a suicide run to make way for Zex to fully take over the Sank Kingdom. Amid the turmoil of these battles, people are beginning to realize that Oz is just as fearsome as the Alliance. Treize is glad to hear it and wants to capitalize on that sentiment to keep Oz strong.
All right. So this is the episode where the Tallgeese is presented a lot more. Not fully, but it's teased. Now, I just because I would like to get you guys' opinions. When I mentioned the Tallgeese is my favorite mobile suit, there was that expression right there. What were your thoughts of this mobile suit with this this little pretense?
The idea that okay.
Literally in my notes. I did not just write that.
Read it for us, John. I can't read the last word.
Go ahead and read it, Brandon.
I really
Don't
can't.
read it out loud now.
Tallgeese
It
is
will
a
hurt your
dumb
heart.
mech.
Oh, mech. I thought it was
Yes.
saying meanie. It's a dumb meanie.
I've only seen a couple of episodes of Witch from Mercury, but that whole concept of piloting Tallgeese has a negative physiological effect on the pilot reminded me of that show, and so I'm wondering if that show got that idea from this show. The idea that the mobile suit is almost an entity unto itself, and it uses up the human pilot like a resource.
I had a similar thought on that when in watching it. And I don't know. It feels like borrowed material in reverse because I saw Witch from Mercury first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But in the same sense, it's like that's kind of a trope. That's kind of a trope in because there's, if I relate a lot of things to video games and role-playing games because that's just a big part of who I am. And there's a lot of stuff that's like in JRPGs where it's just like you have this ultra powerful thing, but in order to use it, there must be sacrifice. You know, and so sacrifice in order to ensure victory is a very Eastern Asian ideal.
It is, but it's not like it's eating him alive. Not quite like what's happening in Witch from Mercury, where it's like if you use it, you're gonna die unless you're special. Like not Trace. Well, okay. Zex,
you can't go there.
He learns to use it.
Mm-hmm.
He is not like a new type style. Like new types aren't around, nothing like that. It's purely he's a good pilot, and this is the kind of thing you would enjoy, is that he learns to pilot it as a human being. He grows, he gets the strength to do it, and he learns to be able to pilot and fly the tall geese at full strength. When you see this right here, it's that the G's are so powerful. The machine moves so quickly and nimbly that he doesn't expect it. It's taking physical toll on his body.
Yeah.
We can't hear you, John.
I hate it when you're not strong enough to hang with the G's.
That's fair. That's fair.
You know, in this episode, Zex seems very conflicted. Like when he's piloting the tall geese, he keeps talking about how, why am I so cautious? I don't understand. Why am I so afraid? What reason am I holding back?
He doesn't want to die.
And, well, yeah, but this comes right after he gets his revenge for the death of his family. And I almost get the sense of like, I got what I'm after, and now I'm just stuck here. Like, I think he even has a conversation with Trace about, are you still going to wear the mask? And he's like, well, yeah, because, you know, I don't know what else to do. It's like he's empty without his revenge mission.
The thing is, though, Branson, he's not quite done. His revenge mission is done. And we're reading into this, obviously, but I can see there being trepidation because of what takes place at the end of this episode, where he's charging into the Saint Kingdom, which is his family homeland.
Right.
He's recapturing the ground. And as he's recapturing the ground, he has to face his family and face his shame. The fact that he turned away from everything his family believed because he thought it was the only way for him to save his family, to restore what his family believed.
Right.
And so he has, to some respect, doing this, taking over, made him come face to face fully with his past as Milliardo, and understanding that at the moment he cannot be the man that he was. He cannot be the type of man that his father and his mother would be proud of. He is a man of war, and he cannot be the man that his sister needs him to be or would want him to be. But he is going to be the man that she needs him to be.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa, I just made a connection here. Zex is King David.
You want to expound on that, or do you want to wait till the maintenance report?
I don't know that I'll remember it at the maintenance report because this just hit me. But honestly, I'm getting those vibes because he's coming in, he's reclaiming what was essentially promised to him, but he can't accomplish everything he wants to set out to because he became a man of war. The same way why God told David that he couldn't build the temple because he was a man of war, and he had blood on his hands, and that's the reason why instead it was Solomon who had to do it. And there's just some parallels. I'm not saying it's an exact one for one, but
no. That's an interesting parallel. I hadn't thought about that. That's pretty good. That's pretty cool.
Like,
sorry to cut you off. It's just if I didn't.
Paul.
No. No.
He's gonna keep working that angle.
Damara, what are your thoughts on this episode?
Okay, so this round of watching it and knowing what is to come, the machine wise, makes you take a much deeper look at the Tallgeese and the dynamic of what it was built as. Because this is basically the first Gundam. This is the first in-depth thing, and you don't see this reaction out of the pilots when they're in their Gundam suits. But at the same time, is an awareness or an awakening to the realization that for them to pilot these Gundams, if the Tolgis is on par exactly with the Gundams, that means you have 14 to 16-year-olds piloting something at that same level of G's that gave him a heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, there's a lot of training and
that's
everything
true.
else that went to, and you have children that are piloting this thing.
Yeah. And this is the raw, unrefined power. Like, presumably, like it's the Gundams don't have the power of this, but they have more control.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I think some of them. In fact, I think 01 is probably the closest to actually holding the same close power as the Tolgis when we start comparing them at that point. Because I think their power levels are not too far off. But at the same time, I think that when they built the Tolgis, I think they had a realization that certain amounts of power were too much in the hands of men.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the Gundams were dialed down just a hair from what the Tolgis was actually sitting at. But at the same time, again, knowing the machines that are to come, I have to stop there. I can't go any further because I know
Yeah.
I will say, Damara, what you just said there almost sounded like a biblical allegory as well. Certain amounts of power are too much in the hands of men.
Yeah.
That's true.
There's a sermon there.
There's a few.
There he is.
That's good.
I could teach my
Good.
I do
clients off
have
of that
one more very minor point about this episode before we go to the next one.
I haven't talked about this episode yet either, but it's cool.
I am so sorry. No, go ahead, John.
No, go ahead, Branson.
So sorry. No. You go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
My
Say your
point
piece.
is not in any way serious at all.
Say it anyway, dude.
Okay, I have a question.
Yeah.
Since this is Earth's future, right?
Yes.
Is this before Wolverine's adamantium kills him or after? Because he's clearly a butler to Katra. And, I'm surprised that he didn't use his claws a little bit more in this show.
Wow.
I hate how long that took me to get.
I love how I was right on point. I was like, okay, I know where you're going with that.
Yeah.
I knew exactly who you were talking about.
Damara's just looking at everybody's notes tonight, apparently.
Look, no filter means I register everything on y'all's faces real loud and clear.
She's like analyzing our facial expressions as we speak.
It's kind of creepy, not gonna lie.
John, what you got?
I only had one other point outside of what's been discussed on this, which is the explanation at the beginning of this, where they're talking about the reasons why Oz and whatever it's called, I call it the Earth Defense Force, but I know that's not their name.
Earth Sphere Alliance.
Whatever. EDF. That's what they are. Explanation of Oz and the EDF in this is beginning to feel a lot it feels a lot like a critique on the UN.
I can see that. Yeah, I can definitely see that. And it's funny you're saying Defense Force. Japan they don't have a military.
Mm-hmm.
They have a defense force. They're legally not allowed to have a military.
Yeah, it was part of the terms at the end of World War II.
Right. And so in the 90s, if I remember correctly, not that I was actively in Japanese history in the 90s, not taking note of their politics, but there was some tension, if I remember correctly, about the restrictions on Japan as a country coming from world powers such as the UN. So it's highly possible that was somewhat a critique on the UN.
It's just when they started going into it, I'm like, they are literally describing the UN right now, a global organization that was designed initially to prevent further massive wars like World War II. In fact, the UN was designed at the end of World War II by Franklin Roosevelt for that express purpose to never see that happen again. And it honestly feels like an open critique. Like, yeah, that's a great ideal, but if you give too much credence to this type of an organization, stuff can get out of hand.
Well, especially since like with the context of like even I gave today about Wu Fei's colony, how the Alliance was going to basically literally gas the entire colony. And remember, these aren't just like the size of Shreveport colonies. These things are monstrously huge.
Yeah, it's not Shreveport, it's Louisiana.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I mean, you talking about the Wu Fei thing, that makes sense because Zex talks about how the Alliance came in and destroyed his kingdom when they were on board with the whole idea of joining up with the Alliance, but they needed, somebody to make an example out of. And so yeah, that check the story with the Wu Fang clan completely checks out with the whole narrative on this then. So it just kind of struck me funny as just kind of like thumbing your nose at the UN just a little bit, just be like, hey, you know what, think about this.
Yeah, totally. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, one more episode left. Episode 10, Hero Distracted by Defeat. Oz, still wanting to rid themselves of the Gundams, sets yet another trap for the Gundams. They leak word of their moving the Taurus suits to a different base. One transport will go by air, one by land. However, one of these transports will be a decoy. The Gundam pilots split up and take on the shipment take on one shipment or another. Amid the battle, the Tall Geese and the Wing Zero have a duel, the Wing 01 have a duel of their own. The duel and battle is interrupted, however, as Lady Un announces that if the Gundam pilots don't give up, she would destroy the entire colony. Dr. J, the scientist who has been giving Hero his orders, interrupts the communication. He surrenders himself in order to save the colony. In response, Hero destroys his Gundam and badly damages himself to keep Oz from getting their hands on it. As the Gundam pilots retreat to regroup, Zex finds himself repulsed by the actions of Lady Un.
Two thoughts right off the cuff of this episode. One, it's fantastic to see that Julius Erving is still getting work after retiring from the NBA. There's old people out there who are just dying at that joke. For the young people in this crowd, Dr. J is a nickname for Julius Erving, who was a basketball player in the 1970s and 80s. He was basically...
Thank you for making me feel young, John. That's the first time in several days that I have felt young, so thank you.
He was basically Michael Jordan before Michael Jordan was Michael Jordan.
I see.
Branson, you knew that. You're all about the sports.
Right.
Go sports.
His sports team.
His idea of sports is stabbing his friend in the neck.
True.
I
will live this down one day.
But
nope,
in actual reference to stuff that happens on this episode, top point I have written down in my notes is I'm pretty much ready for Lady Un to die. Like that can't happen. That can't happen soon enough or slow enough, in my opinion.
Yep. Like I got very, very strong vibes that she's kind of used to being the only chick around.
She's an only child. I can promise you that. She's an only child.
That makes sense. So like when Noid shows up, she's all like, it's I guess the female equivalent of a I don't know if I can say this on a family show, of a pissing contest. Like she wanted to go around and mark her territory. Like, no, this is mine. She hated Noid just for being there and being a woman. Like I was trying to make sense of it. I was like, is she thinking that Noid's trying to like make goo eyes at Trey's or something like that? But Noid's all wrapped up in Zex. And
I am literally watching Damara bite her tongue off right now.
There must be things we don't know about.
You guys have no idea what's happening with her. But you're not wrong. There is almost a jealousy. It's not that it's another woman. It's the Lady Un believes that everybody underneath Trey's is underneath Trey's. They're not worthy to even look at his boots, her included. And so to see Trey's praising Zex and his team, people who are doing things that she doesn't agree with the way they're doing it, and not fulfilling the way that she perceives Trey's vision, bothers the crap out of her.
Okay.
So she's like some stalker fan who one day goes crazy and tries to kill the object of her affection or something like that.
Is the term Stan, S-T-A-N, Stan? She's a Stan?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. That's a reference to an Eminem track. But yeah, I get what you're saying. But honestly, I don't care what her reason is. I'm ready for her to fall into a slow moving meat grinder.
Damara, you got any thoughts on this?
Feet first, by the way.
Oh, I have plenty of thoughts. Okay. For sure, I can't go too far, but I can tell you that this episode is where you see a lot of shifting mentally with Lady Une. And it's going to be a huge dynamic that actually exists in real time today. Like if you meet people, you can actually see this in real people, real symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the most real mental health you could actually find in an anime. And for it to come out in the time period it came out in, it's really impressive. Like is it amazing? Like I could use this in therapy to demonstrate the reality of this mental health issue.
You need to borrow the DVDs?
Yeah, I can't take those DVDs up there. You know why? Okay, so let's just move on. So what I am going to point out for Lady Une is I think her dynamic with Noin is there's another extra dynamic that's there. Is Noin is the epitome of holding on to all of her femininity, but not being afraid to get into anything and still fight and not be worried. Like she's 100% confident in who she is. Yeah. And Lady Une has gone years sculpting herself into this military mechanical being, thinking that is who she needs to be able to survive.
That's great. She should preserve it by wrapping herself in plastic.
I'm
not going to argue that. But what you're going to see is because she's so hyper-focused in this structure that is not her, it's complete fake. When it actually cracks, you're going to see this dynamic of what happens when you don't learn to find your own identity in something. And she has connected her identity to someone else. And what she doesn't realize is she has...
Is she going to go Azula?
I'm not going to say anything.
That's a yes.
I'm not going to say nothing.
That's a yes.
I'm not say nothing.
That's a yes.
Azula?
We're going to comment on you not knowing what that is later there, Branson.
John, explain it for the crowd, buddy.
Princess Azula was a character in Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Okay, yes.
She was Zuko's sister.
Yes, I remember her now. Yes,
I'm gonna say. Okay, I'm actually gonna answer this. The answer is no, actually. And when we get through to the episodes, I can actually explain what exactly is going on with Une, but it is actually not Azula. There's other shows that you have a much better. I'll spit it out later, but this is not the episode to let it out on.
See, this kind of sucks because you've captured my fascination. Because like abnormal psychology is like my jam. It's about
to come screaming out. It is coming out soon.
You're in for a ride. Just buckle up.
This excites me because like people think I'm a weirdo because I enjoy reading about serial killers just because I'm fascinated by their psychology. And then
this whole episode makes total sense now.
Madam, you need to stop reading me. That's unfair.
Look, I ain't gotten started yet, but I will tell you that you have to pay attention. Don't like sit there and try to work on something while you're watching the episode. You're really going to have to watch because it's a very slow process. They're very good about stretching it through the episodes.
Yeah.
And the small things are what's going to matter with her for you to actually see the mental health issue in her.
I will tell you that is incredibly difficult for me for two reasons. I have to take notes. Otherwise, everything bleeds together. And on top of taking notes, I'm watching it with subtitles because that's all that Crunchyroll has. So I'm not fluent in Japanese yet. So
Yeah, it's going to be interesting then.
You'll see it in the subtitles because I saw it the first time in the subtitle version. You can see it because her wording is going to get you, and then her verbal response.
Yep. Well, any more thoughts on this episode, guys?
My final thought on this episode is I highly doubt that Hero's dead. Like,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's
you
kinda
watch
obvious.
his mobile suit blow up, and you watch him bleed in a bleeding mess on the ground, and I was emotionally unaffected by that. I know that was supposed to be a
Yeah.
big emotional scene, and I'm just like, eh.
Yeah. It probably helps that we know there's an entire series to go here.
I will tell you this much. Knowing what I know from listening to you guys talk about the first Gundam series and having watched as much anime as I've been binging on since I got Crunchyroll, Gundam would not be above killing off a main character and still continuing the series without it. And I don't have any reservation or any confirmation that Hero does survive. It's just, I'm just watching this. I'm like, I am so unaffected by this. I personally don't believe that he's dead, but even outside of that, they have made him such an unlikable character with how he responds to people that I am emotionally unaffected, even if they did kill him in that scene, just because it's just like, eh.
You know, I find that interesting that, yeah, that's a good point, because all the characters who've been like, oh, I love this character because blah, 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 blah. I hate this character because blah, 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 blah. We haven't talked about Hero like at all, except for the few times that he's the main character. Like, we just talk about what he does. No one's mentioned how they connect to him in any way. I think you've struck an interesting point there.
I mean,
I wasn't affected either, but
literally, the guy jumped down in a hole, saved a 300-kilometer radius from becoming a nuclear wasteland, and all of us were more focused on this idiotic fight between Wu Fang and trees.
you mispronounced epic.
No, I didn't. But you see what I mean? It's like they could have blew him up there. They could have blown him up there, and I would have been like, "Cool,
okay,
he's not in the series anymore. Who's going to point the gun at Relina now?"
No, I get where you're coming from. Yeah. No, Wu Fei wouldn't point a gun; he'd point a blade, because that's the honorable thing to do.
And then he would tell her why she's deficient because she's a female.
That's probably gonna happen.
Because he did that to what's her face in annoying. That's what I called her. That's right. He did that to her when they first met. So I don't know.
That's a good point, though, and I think you're right. Maybe they'll develop, Hero more, because he's supposed to be like the main character. Like, he pilots the main Gundam. But
let me ask you this, Branson. Why is he the main Gundam?
Because he pilots 01, and that's the one that looks the most like the Gundam from the movies. So I just automatically, in the Mobile Suit Gundam movies, there was only one Gundam suit, and it was the RX-78 or whatever.
Okay.
And Wing 1 looks the most like it, like it's the most callback to it. So I guess I just automatically assume that's the primary Gundam of the group.
Brings up an interesting conversation about what makes a Gundam and what is not a Gundam. This has been an ongoing fight. If you're in some of the Gundam Facebook groups, there's like, what makes a Gundam? Like, how do you know a Gundam is a Gundam? Every time there's a new Gundam series, there are people like, that doesn't look like a Gundam. And everyone's like, well, what does one look like? I mean, if you look at them, they're all kind of different in some fashion. Are the quote unquote main Gundam. There's the joke that, well, if you just throw a V fin on the head, then it's automatically a Gundam.
That may not be wrong.
Like, that's kind of become a thing. There is a conversation in the manga about the colors of the Gundams. And there is a particular character, I don't want to say who, because it becomes prevalent later, who is looking at it's a flashback of the production of the Tall Geese. And there's a conversation about the coloring of it and and the wanting to color it to look like a hero. And there was a conversation about what colors represent a heroic character. And the red, white, and blue, ironically, come off as the heroic colors in
Darn
the
straight.
majority of the Gundam series. Like the majority
It's
of
the
them.
colors of freedom.
I mean, you looked at the RX-78, red, white, and blue. You look at the Ariel from Witcher Mercury, red, white, and blue. Even though the red's just red only shows up briefly.
I'm
And
about
so,
to throw out others for you and
Oh, yeah.
shows
I
they
mean,
haven't seen, like Exia,
Burning-
and then
Burning Gundam from G Fighter.
the
Well,
strike.
There's
strike
also
freedom.
stylistically though the Gundams, like you talk about heroes, the Gundams look like samurais with armor, whereas the mobile suits that belong to Oz and the Alliance, they look like grunts. They look like standard issue GI.
They look like Zaku's.
Yeah,
That's on purpose, I believe. I believe
Yeah.
that is a purposeful act to make the callback, to have that callback to the original series of this is a enemy, this is a bad guy unit of some sort.
but I mean, they don't look heroic. They look like grunts, whereas the Gundams have this. You don't see a Leo doing a heroic pose.
Mhm.
You don't see an Ares doing a heroic pose, but you see Gundams, they're not even doing anything. They're just standing there, but it's in a heroic pose. So just the design, I guess it's just worked into the artwork. You look at it and you say, okay, that is a Gundam and this is not. It's just a big mech suit. And the difference is just in the way it looks.
Mm-hmm. There's a vibe to it almost.
Yes, a vibe. That's what I was trying to find. Thank you. That's the word.
Vibe checks.
But here's the question, though: Would you consider the Tall Geese as a Gundam?
I consider the Tall Geese the prequel to the Gundams. It's the prototype Gundam.
But it's not a Gundam. It's
But
not
it
made
is
out of Gundanium.
I believe it is actually.
It is.
Because that was the biggest thing that you said that has stuck with me since my journey into my fandom, my Gundam fandom,
Right.
which is that what defines a Gundam changes from series to series.
Right.
In The Witch from Mercury, it's whatever has the Gund format. In this one, it's whatever mobile suit is made out of Gundanium. I'm sure there's ones in other series, but again, my exposure is fairly limited.
Yeah,
So-
totally.
So with that said, though,
I'm now on a hunt to find out what Tall Geese was made out of.
I think
Dallas
he
is like,
is made of Gundanium alloy because
I feel like
of
there
a
was a
later
conversation
episode
about
where his
that.
parts are used for something.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to keep my mouth shut. And you're not making it easy since you're researching, and I'm like, I can tell you the answer because it's already in the show.
Right.
For the record, there's
well,
like 98 episodes, and I fast tracked to 40 episodes.
good
Yeah.
lord, there's 98 episodes to this show.
no,
yeah.
there's
Well, there's
Not 98
98
episodes.
on. No, there's 98 on Hulu because I think the dubbed and the subbed are counted.
yeah,
possibly.
there's 49
Oh, okay.
episodes.
Okay, I was about to say we need to be doing more of these at once if that's the case, because we'll be doing this until Jesus comes back. If
The Gundam Watch Heaven Edition. For a special guest, we have the Apostle Paul, who
Sir?
you may find has strong.
Sir, I have already outlined the Gundam, the Jesus Gundam. We talked about it in the Christmas episode.
Right. I heard that. Yes.
All right. So that being said, any last thoughts on the last 5 episodes we watched?
I'm excited.
Episodes 6 and 10.
I can legitimately say that my perspective has changed on this series and with these 5 episodes. I'm genuinely excited to see more. And just to give everybody a peek behind the kimono that's listening, I literally watched all 5 of these episodes yesterday to prep, because I like to keep my thoughts and the episodes fresh in my head before we record. Otherwise, everything just turns into a ball of mush. And I was frustrated after the fact because I couldn't find anything on Crunchyroll that I wanted to watch that really hit the vibe where my brain was at, because I had just got done watching these episodes and I wanted to watch more, but I couldn't because I needed to save that for the next episode. So my perspective has shifted on this particular series.
I gotcha.
This series of episodes, like I said before, especially with episode 7, it's got me to care more about the plot. Before, I was just enjoying, like I said, the animation, the action. I mean, who doesn't love giant robots fighting it out in the sky,
right,
or on the ground? But this is the first set of episodes where I'm like, no, I actually care about the characters. I care about the story. I want to see how this plays out. So this set kind of created a shift for me too.
I am a little bit concerned what it says about me that I'm identifying with one of the big bads in this show, though.
We'll get. I'm going to tell you this. Zex is one of my favorite characters in the entire series. So
given what happened in the Mobile Suit movies and what Char, which is the character that Zex seems to be modeled after, I question how much of the big bad he really is. He's definitely not a good guy, at least not right now, but given the inner struggle, the way he handled Otto sacrificing himself to pilot Tall Geese, his sense of honor towards his family, and that he shames his family and just kind of accepts that because he thinks it's what's for the best, that's not villainy to me. He might be on the, quote, wrong side of the war, but that's one of the things that we discussed with the last movie, is that this show, at least these 2 iterations, is really good about making you question, well, is the bad guy really the bad guy? Is the good guy all good? I mean,
I also want to ask this question. I think Dallas is going to be the only person who can answer it because he's seen both properties. But is it intentional that Lady Prospero's mask looks so much like Zek's mask?
Yeah. It's a type.
Right. But I mean, is it intentional? Like, do they share the qualities that would require that mask, so to speak?
Of hiding your identity?
Of being
character
kind
development.
of a bad person for the right reasons?
Again, that's one of those, that is the trope of the mask. They're villainous, but are they villainous?
You definitely don't want to wear a mask to your first day on the job.
True story.
This is a bad idea.
And you don't
Real
want to
quick.
ever celebrate your birthday.
Never celebrate birthdays, even our Christmas specials. So the answer to the question from earlier, because it was bothering me. I was looking it up, and everyone's like saying, "Oh, the Tall Geese is made from titanium alloy." But the more I dug into it, this is what I have. During the 1-year war, the Earth Federation forces, the EFF Project V, developed Luna titanium alloy, later known as Gundanium. So the Tall Geese is a Gundam.
There you go. He's a dumb
I told
Gundam,
you.
but he puts the dumb in Gundam. But yes, he is a Gundam.
Better than that dadgum death site. Anyway, so moving on,
I
ladies and
will
gentlemen.
fight you. And you hit your sister
So-
with that comment too, sir. So
Damara has there's another one you guys don't know about. Damara prefers more.
There is one. Yeah, there is another Gundam.
Damara's like, yeah, he's right.
I can say my arm is mostly functional now, so I can
Let's
get
go.
started. I can get started on my gunpla. So
All right. Awesome.
Get it going. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, you've heard around the board from most of us. Damara, real quick, summarize. Are you enjoying the second round of these episodes, or are you just like, really, Dallas? Can we just hang out like regular siblings? And by regular siblings, I mean totally abandon you to be raised by somebody else while I go off to war and change my name and I fight to rebuild our kingdom. Normal sibling stuff.
Yeah, I don't think normal exists. Okay.
If I was to define the two of yours relationships, normal siblings would not be on high on the list of adjectives I would use.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I don't know what normal looks like.
I mean that in the most loving way possible. Trust me.
He just called us freaks. That's what just happened right there. So, I mean, yeah, obviously, this is one of my favorite of the Gundam series. I say that. I mean, there's at least 3 Gundam series that we've watched that hit high points. Really 4 now.
Mm-hmm.
There's 4. It's building over time.
Yes.
But seeing our original, the one that got us hooked, has been interesting. The depth of what I see it is much more, and I no longer can watch it while I'm or after work anymore. Lady Un will be a prime example when you get to it.
I want her to die so much.
So I'm going to say for me, it's been a blast watching this with you guys. And I hope that hope you guys have been enjoying as much as I do revisiting it. And again, I have a lot of nostalgia for it because again, this is something I shared with Damara, but like, I think you guys are catching like this. There's some good stuff here. Like it gets a little bit wild as you get through it.
Admittedly, it's comical watching you two like share with us your experiences in y'all's mini war. That part is more entertaining, I think, for us on this round is to watch y'all really awaken to it.
All right, so we want to hear from everybody else who's listening to this. Have you enjoyed it? Do you not like it? Whatever your thoughts on episodes 6 through 10, let us know. Reach out to us on all social media.
Let us know if you feel that Branson's perspective on Wu Fei is uninformed or poorly perceived.
I'm curious on how people are receiving Branson's high praise for what may be one of the most disliked characters.
Like I said, I appreciate characters with rigid senses of morality because when you put them in situations where those rigid senses are tested, you got to decide what they really believe versus what they're just taught to believe. It is a beautiful thing.
Understood, sir.
I will say this. It's remarkable that me and Branson get along as well as I do because he's a lawful good alignment and I am chaotic neutral.
I'm more neutral good. I'm a little bit towards lawful good. But
Superman, you are lawful good to the core. I don't want to hear about it.
Now we have Superman. Okay.
All right. Well, guys, we're going to make a
much.
Quick transition to our maintenance reports. Let's jump into it.
Now loading the cruise maintenance reports. Reports begin in 3, 2, 1.
All right, and welcome to the maintenance reports. This is the portion of the show where we take what we just watched, episodes 6 through 10 of Mobile Suit Gundam Wing, and we bring some encouragement to you guys. We look for some deep-seated spiritual truths that are designed to encourage you, challenge you, help you take your next step with God, hopefully let you walk out of this place knowing that you're loved and you're cared for. So, Damara, would you like to share your maintenance report?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I'm going after identity because there's several areas in the show in the past 5 episodes where we got to see a glimpse of that questioning of one's identity. I think this is something that in every person at least once in their lifetime questions their identity about who they are.
Yeah.
And when you reach a point where you begin to learn that your identity can no longer be rooted in a thing or just your job or like your school, if you're a kid and you're going to a certain school and you like root that identity into your school, there comes a time when you learn that you got to root your identity into something far more.
Totally.
Which is funny because this week at work, we're starting on step 2 in AA, and that is when you begin to make the decision. You're not even making the decision, you're approaching the idea that there is a higher power in existence. And learning what does it mean to surrender to a higher power. And in this particular case, learning to surrender into Christ and rooting your entire identity in Christ is a complete life-changing thing. Even in psychology, when we add Christ into the mix of it, whole theories had to evolve and change to actually include the reality of what happens to people. So there's some theories in, and I'm going to go after Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that if you look it up, you can find the pyramid. But if you find the full one, when you actually add Christ into it, it creates at the absolute top of the pyramid, which is called transcendence. And that is actually where you're connected into the higher power, which is specifically when we talk about adding Christ into your daily life, the entire pyramid dynamic changes. You have this rooting that is unbelievably strong. And it's because it's no longer in your understanding, but your understanding of Christ, it's of himself. And when you do that, when things around you start going crazy, you don't get rocked to your core. It's really more of you're still standing. The whole house can come down around you, but you're still there. You're not completely broken. So that's kind of where I'm going. I'm trying to think of exactly, because there's many people in the Bible that their identity had to be rediscovered about who they are. One of the prime ones that comes to mind is actually Moses, because he grows up in an entire culture where he's raised a certain way, and the reality is that's not even his culture.
Yeah.
It is someone else's culture, and he's wrapped his identity in it. And when he breaks from that identity, he has to rebuild and root himself in the Lord. And then eventually he ends up saving his own people and being able to take them out. With that being said, earlier in the show, we mentioned, actually John mentioned about David. I actually had Moses come to my mind because Moses is taking the people to get to the promised land, but he never actually enters the promised land because of where the people are at in that moment. And that promised land is reclaiming something that is there. So there's a kind of a connection to that moment when we have Zex trying to retake his homeland. That's the same thing that Moses was doing. And instead it becomes his his heir, so to speak, is the one who actually takes the land. But to take that land, he had to be willing to face trials and tribulations and be willing to actually go into battle to find that. And sometimes when you really root yourself in your own identity in Christ, facing off with those giants, you realize, hey, I actually can walk in this because I'm not walking in alone. I'm actually walking in with God. Yeah. And it's such a different dynamic to be able to walk in that and to find that power when you really root yourself in Christ.
Yeah, totally. That's good, Damara. That's real good. You guys got any thoughts on that before we move on?
That's my group for tomorrow, too. It's just foreshadowing. This is going to happen because I'm not going to forget that now.
Damara's going to walk in. So let me tell you guys about Gundam.
I wish I could do that. I got one that might be a geek. One.
Nice.
Cool.
Life would be easier.
I'll add this to it. The whole conversation about identity is a huge deal. I think it is one of the biggest things people struggle with, and that whole rebuilding process. That's a thing. I think that some people are scared to rebuild. They're scared of the crisis moment, but I think they're more scared of the rebuilding process, because I think some people are scared of that they're going to screw up, that they're not going to do it right, because there's expectations. There's things being thrusted on people for their identity to be something, even when they're trying to root it in Christ. And my encouragement is for those who are in that rebuilding process, trust the Lord, walk you through it, find a biblical community who's solid and encouraging, challenging, but encouraging, that will have grace as you walk this out and become what Christ has called you to be. Because it's a scary thing to rebuild, to go from one thing to another, especially if you've existed for a long time outside of the identity that you're supposed to have. So just want to add those 2 cents to it.
Cool.
Awesome. So I want to add my maintenance report, and mine is kind of more of the parallel type aspect. Talking about the tall geese. It was a prequel to the Gundams. It became before the Gundams. It was the basis for the Gundams. The Gundams are far superior to the Tallgeese in a lot of ways. And even still, like, we see this evolution. You guys are going to see some stuff here, and you're going to see the beginnings of something within the next probably 10 episodes that goes beyond the Gundams. And it's this growth. It's this thing of getting to a final stage. And I'm reminded of the book of Hebrews, and chapter 9 specifically. It's talking about the Old Testament temple and how it was a type and shadow. It was a foreshadowing of Christ and the sacrifices. The writer of Hebrews was writing to a group of Jews who they were trying to figure out what it means to be Jewish and Christian at the same time. They were trying to figure out what their faith looked like. It's the writer, who is obviously very knowledgeable about what it means to be a Jew, is going, let me walk you through this. Let me help you understand this. This is a type and shadow. The things that we've been doing all these years, they were preludes that pointed to the truth, to what would come. And the Tallgeese was that. It was a prelude. It was to point towards what would come, of the different Gundams and the various machines that would come afterwards, the Gundams. And so my encouragement for folks is this, that Christ is very big about giving us foreshadowing about things to come and things that are going to be. And if you look at the Old Testament, everything points back to Jesus and the way it plays out. But in your personal life, kind of the encouragement side of it, there are things you've experienced, you've walked through, that God was there. And when you step back and you begin to look at 2020 down the road, you will see how Christ was there every step of the way. If we as New Testament Christians look at the Old Testament, we see Christ all the way through. There's a term called the scarlet thread. It goes from Genesis all the way through the scriptures, and it points us to Christ all the way through. I want to encourage you. You may be going through some hard times today and some difficult things, but continue to trust in him, continue to walk through this. And when you come out the back end, and you will, the Bible talks about how that he never gives us more than we can, not that we can't handle, but more than what he will help us to get through. When you look backwards, you're going to see that through line, how Christ was there the entire time. There's types and shadows of him working in your life all the way through to where you're at today. So that's my encouragement for us. Branson, you got something?
Awesome. I do, actually. Going back to, and I'm going to entice an eye roll out of John here, but going back to Wu Fei and his John almost got up and left the room. But no, actually, John's point I readily agree with. Wu Fei's sense of honor makes him a terrible soldier and not faithful to his cause, because he had an opportunity to do the thing he set out to do, and because of his attention to his honor code, he was not able to complete it. Because he has a way that he follows, a rule of law that he follows, he was not able to do the thing that he set out to do. And that reminded me of the account in Matthew chapter 12, where Jesus heals a man with a withered hand on the Sabbath. And there's a man there with a withered hand, and the Pharisees, once again trying to trap Jesus, says, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath? And in verse 11 it says, he said to them, which one of you who has a sheep, if it falls into the pit on the Sabbath, will not take hold of it and lift it out? Of how much more value is a man than a sheep? So it is lawful to do good on the Sabbath. And then he said to the man, stretch out your hand. And the man stretched it out, and it was restored, healthy like the other. But the Pharisees went out and conspired against him how to destroy him. Sometimes following faith, this was true of the Pharisees, and I think it can be true of us as Christians as well. We can get so caught up in the letter of the law that we miss out on the spirit of the law. We get so focused on, well, I have to do this, and I have to do this, and I have to do this, and I have to say this, and I have to use this proper language, and I have to believe this proper set of theological values, and that kind of thing. And in the academic pursuit of our faith, we forget about the actual relationship with Christ. That was what was going on with the Pharisees here. They were so focused on keeping the laws about the Sabbath that they completely missed sight about what the purpose of the Sabbath was. And that was to have a day of rest, a day to remember the Lord. What better way to remember to remember the Lord than to care for those who are sick, to care for those who are in need? And Jesus makes that point when he heals a man on the Sabbath. And I see that in Wu Fei, in that here he was with an opportunity to end the conflict. Here he was with an opportunity to do the whole reason he was sent to Earth, was to do what he was about to do. In fact, earlier in that episode, we see him desperate. I'm never going to let Trace get away. Like, he is dead set on, I am going to complete my mission. But he gets tangled up with his need to, as I now understand, honor Nataku, honor his way of life. And so he gets tripped up by his sense of honor. And as followers of Christ, we need to make sure that what we are doing actually reflects the heart of Christ and the heart of his teachings. We could spend a lot of time playing what I've heard some speakers call Bible ping pong, where you pit one verse against the other and well, Paul said this, well, Jesus said that, well, Peter said that, well, Moses said that, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But we have to remember that all of Scripture is written by the same God. And if we pursue his heart and try to understand where he's coming from, that is what's more important than all the check boxes of, okay, did I do this correct today? Did I do this correct today? Did I do this correct today? Now, I'm not saying that it's not important to understand those details. Absolutely. But we don't ever want to miss the heart of what God teaches because we're so focused on the letter.
Yeah.
That's my maintenance report.
I like it.
All right. Well, once again, while everyone was talking, I came up with a maintenance report. Over the course of these series of episodes, we watch as the 5 individuals are slowly beginning to coalesce into one unit. And you see what happens when they try to function as when they try to function as individuals. And you have idiot mistakes that happen, like honor duels with swords rather than accomplishing your mission with the tools that you've been given, and things of that nature. And there are battles that they endure that they wouldn't have survived if they didn't have the others there to assist with them. And I think that's the wisdom that Katra brings to this group, because he understands the wisdom of the unit rather than the individual. And that is clearly outlined in Ecclesiastes 4:9-12, where it says, 2 are better than 1 because they have good reward for their toil. For if they fall, one will lift up his fellow, but woe to him who is alone when he falls and has not another to lift him up. Again, if 2 lie together, they keep warm, but how can one keep warm alone? And though a man might prevail against one who is alone, 2 will withstand him. A threefold cord is not quickly broken. And I think this is the realization that they're making in this series of episodes, is that if they have the 5 functioning as a unit, they are more powerful. The sum of them are more powerful than the collection of the individuals themselves.
Yeah.
And I think that's an I would use that analogy as an encouragement to whoever's listening, that if you're going through life, as a Christian or otherwise, functioning as an individual and you don't have a support group, I would recommend find your support group, find your cord of 3, find people to help you out. Cause a lot of poor mistakes happen when you function as a unit, like ill thought out honor fights with swords.
Let it go, Todd. Let it go.
Whereas, or even Christians, I've encountered several Christians in my life where they're like, well, I don't go to church. You don't have to go to church to be a Christian. And that's true. You don't have to go to church to be a Christian. But you know what? Your car works a lot better when you take it to the garage for regular maintenance.
It's true.
And you've got other people there to help you work on that car, and people who might know something more. And, you know, it's easy to make yourself isolated and vulnerable when you're by yourself. And as someone who has anxiety, I can tell you that feelings of isolation are awful. But you know what? When you have that core, when you have that crew, when you have the unit, you don't have to deal with those feelings of isolation, because when you aren't successful as an individual, as a part of a unit, you have other people there to pick you up. You have other people there to encourage you. You have other people there to push you forward and help you achieve the goals that you could not achieve on your own as an individual.
Yeah.
Amen.
Good stuff.
So with that being said, we want to thank everybody for listening to this episode of The Gundam Watch. Oh my gosh, it's so edgy. We're watching the Gundams.
Thank you, Troa.
And if you've enjoyed this episode, please like, rate, and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. That helps us out tremendously and puts us in front of like-minded individuals like yourself who might be interested in hearing what we might have to say about this show, or series of shows, rather. Please consider following us on the FaceSpace and the TikToks and all the other socials. We would love to be able to engage with you on those platforms, and on the Discord as well. And if you take nothing else out of this episode, please understand you are loved. You are cared for. There's a purpose for your life. And doggone it, people like you.
At least we do.
Am I missing anything from the exit? Oh, Captain, my Captain.
Just make sure you hit all the socials. Basically, on Instagram and Twitter, look for The Gundam Watch.
TGW.
Help us find a way to put John on the website.
I don't need to be on the website. I'm not important. That being said, thank you so much for listening. So long, and thanks for all the fish. Stay fresh, cheese bags. Peace and love.